What is a good way to respond to a statement that I do not love my spouse unconditionally? I am trying to love him, but I want him to get help, and he refuses to get any help, and I do not feel emotionally safe to be with him. The concept of unconditional love is his way of saying, I'm struggling and you only love me if I'm not struggling. That's what he's saying. I've heard many men say that before, saying she only loves me if I'm perfect or if I'm doing everything right. Unfortunately, what your husband doesn't understand is love is not something that is easily given when we don't feel safe. I don't question whether you love your husband. You've been hurt by your husband. And because you've been hurt by him, your ability to give him that unconditional love that he's wanting is to love me no matter what. Even if I hurt you, I want you to accept me. Human intimacy never works that way. We don't continually open up when we feel vulnerable or hurt. It's not the way our bodies are created. Dr. Stephen Portis, and I talk about this in some of the educational classes that I do, describes that the first thing we do in any and every environment is we check for safety. If I put out a safety meter with you in your marriage and said on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 not safe at all, 10 completely safe with my husband, where would you be on that safety meter? My guess is, as you said, I don't feel emotionally safe to be with him, you're probably on the lower part of the scale. So if I ask you maybe a strange question, why don't you feel safe? That may sound dumb, but to all who watch this video, let me ask a strange question, something I've been asking my clients more recently, and it's this question. Why are you so threatened by pornography? If your husband's been viewing pornography, what is so threatening about it? And don't accept the fact that it's just the first answer. So if your first answer is because he's replacing me, what does it mean if he's replacing you? What is that doing to you? I don't feel like I'm good enough. Okay. Now we're getting a little bit deeper. And if you're not feeling good enough or you're not good enough, what else is going on inside of you? Well, I feel like he thinks other people are better than me, that I'm not a good wife, that I'm not pretty enough. And now you start to see the beliefs that you're forming about yourself. Stop and analyze what it is that you're feeling and why you're feeling what you're feeling. And you'll have more clarity on what's happening. I don't feel emotionally safe because when I open up, I'm afraid that you won't want me or that I'm not enough. That's a very different conversation than, oh, you don't care. Because you're looking at pornography, you don't care about your family. You don't care about us. In contrast, it's more of, I don't feel like you love me anymore. And I can't compete with those people. And so when you look at pornography, I feel that I've lost you. It's a very different conversation than most people can have or have had. So I invite you to spend some time figuring out the deeper part so you can communicate with more clarity about what his involvement in pornography or other sexual behaviors is doing to you. Next part, he's asking you to be unconditionally accepting of his behavior. It would be just as easy for you to turn that around and say, I don't think you're unconditionally loving me because I get hurt when you view pornography, and you get upset and angry because I'm upset and angry. And I think if you love me unconditionally, you'd be able to accept the fact that I'm hurting. Same argument, doesn't solve the problem. He's asking you to do something unconditionally. Love me for my challenge. If it was diabetes, he's saying, you would love me. But because it's pornography or other sexual behaviors, you're only loving me if I don't have this problem. I get his argument, but it doesn't make you feel safe. And so to that, if he were watching this, I would say to him, the concept of unconditional love is assuming that there's not hurt or harm in the relationship. When we hurt each other, our natural instinct is to pull back. And that's what your wife is doing right now. She's pulling back because she doesn't feel safe. I understand you're struggling with addiction. I understand that it's hard for you, that you've probably been dealing with the pornography since you were a young boy. And you were involved with pornography or whatever behaviors probably long before you met your wife. I understand that. But you're asking your wife to not feel fear, to not feel anxiety, to not feel these emotions. You're asking her to not feel those and experience those things, but you're doing these things. A better approach for him would be to say, my behaviors I've got to work to overcome because they're harming you and they're preventing you from trusting me. And I want to earn your trust. This is going to be a hard experience or hard thing to overcome for me because I've been dealing with this for so long. I want to overcome it because I want a better marriage. I want to be a better man for you. That's kind of more of the dialogue that I would hope that he could come to you with, is owning it, not saying, you're not giving me unconditional love. You're not giving me unconditional love is a argument type of a thing that never solves the problem. Coming to you with ownership and responsibility is what we're looking for there. So I hope that's helpful. And hopefully he might be able to watch some of this video with you. I think I like having hard conversations, and I think sometimes couples refuse or kind of don't have them because they're afraid that they'll lead to arguing and fighting. My experience has been when we have the hard conversations, if it's done with the goal to create safety and love, we're going to have hard conversations, but underneath it is with a desire to make things better.